Hi guys, how's everyone doing? It's been a while since I updated, and I am happy to be making another video. And I made another post on my blog on studying Korean and Japanese and languages in general. So I did take another break. It is Warcraft. I think it's going to be my last one. So basically, there was a release recently. Re-release of the Burning Crusade expansion, which originally came out in 2007. They re-released it, and I was so excited about that because you have to play it when it initially comes out, or you miss out on the fun, the party when everyone has when they go to play it that first night in the first week or whatever. So I really enjoyed that, and there was a lot of preparation going up to that. So unfortunately, I didn't study much languages for I guess about a month or whatever. I don't know exactly, but a while. But after 2 weeks of the expansion, I got my fix, and I'm now back into studying Korean and Japanese. So I'm doing both. I guess for a while I was, really trying to focus, although I was still doing using Japanese. I wasn't studying Japanese. I was trying to focus on Korean. Well, now I'm trying to do both at the same time. And I'm actually thinking maybe moving back to Japan, although just thinking. And of course, when I looked into moving back to Japan or just going to Japan, I saw that it's not allowed. Japan is closed off to all foreigners. You have to be Japanese or I guess be a very important person. Maybe if you're like super rich. I'm sure you can get it. Rich people can do anything they want, so or famous. I'm not that. Looking into it though, I'm a similar circumstance, I guess, to before last time I went to Japan. I'm kind of tired of my job. I've been tired for about a year now. Corona came out, and I was kind of considering leaving. There's other options. I could actually just leave. I'm in Arizona, in Tucson, which is a small, kind of a medium-sized city. And of course, if you're into international languages and just you want to go to an international city, like my hometown, Boston, is a great city for anything with foreign languages or culture. Much better than Tucson. Tucson's way cheaper. The weather's way better though. So pros and cons, right? Or go to Japan, where everything is foreign and Japanese and fun, including all the people you talk to, especially. I don't know. So I got back into languages. I pulled out Anki. I pulled out my old Japanese language deck, which is called the Core 10,000 10K. There's other versions of it, 6K, 2K. And it is a wonderful Anki deck. It includes the vocabulary word and a wonderful example sentence that's really concise, but very clear, very useful. Concise being the most important thing. It's short. It's not too long, because when you're doing flashcards or learning, trying to memorize, absorb a new word, you want a sentence, you want a complete thought, but you don't want it to be too long, get too complex, or it kind of gets mixed. Or thinned down and just not good, watered down, so to speak. Yeah, so this deck is wonderful, and it includes professional voice actors recording these sentences for the world to learn Japanese. It's so wonderful. It's not just native speakers, or it's not from like a drama. It's a professional voice actor just really saying or several actors making these sentences for people to study off of. And I wanted that for Korean for so long. And there just wasn't even a good sentence deck, never mind one that had native audio that I could find. I could have made my own. I found this resource, basically I think it's Routledge, frequency dictionary with the top 5,000 words and example sentences. Well, someone else actually went ahead and using that resource made an Anki deck that you can download, which is just great for Korean. And I downloaded it. I love it. And I used text-to-speech software by Microsoft, which is just really good, but it's still a computer. And I was thinking, maybe I could get the voice actors to record these sentences for me, and it would be just as good as the Japanese codec. That's what I was thinking. And I went on Google. I did some searching, and eventually, there's several sites. I eventually found one where you didn't have to submit your project to them to get a human being, to give you a quote. I found a website where you could just copy paste your text into a text box, and it would count the words. And then using this guide, you could kind of figure out what it's going to cost. And I thought, I saw this and I saw that it would cost, I don't know, I was thinking 600 to 1,000. It was a little bit of a question mark to me, but I'm like, oh, that I was thinking that this would be my upper limit. I can afford this barely, right? I get an annual bonus at my job, and Corona, not spending it on traveling. Why not spend it on languages? This actually seemed like a good idea to me. And so I got my Anki deck. I split it, the 5,000 sentences into 2,500 separate sentences, alternating, and found a male voice actor and a female Korean voice actor, and sent off the sentences to them. And somehow the $1,000 became $2,000. So, but I did it. Now I have 2,000 sentences, or 5,000 sentences, and with professional voice acting recording, and I'm slowly adding it into my Anki deck. I'm doing it manually because I don't know how to do it automatically with the alternating. I'm sure you could, but I don't know how to do it, so I'm not doing it. I'm just slowly adding it in. It kind of has like a few hundred, and then as I add my 12 sentences a day, if I stay on top of the deck, then slowly will add the audio to all the vocabulary cards or sentence cards. It sounds really good. They sound. I'm comparing it to the Japanese one. I do think the Japanese one sounds slightly better, but just barely. They're voice acting, voice actors recording audio for you is great. Comparing it to dramas using subs to SRS decks, for example, it's a huge difference. The subs to SRS decks are interesting. They are fun. They are challenging. They're great, but this is a completely different animal, and you can really sit down, listen to, and kind of to each sound as they're saying it, and just really kind of study that. And it's great. It's a pleasure to listen to. One thing I will say, though, I compared it to the text to speech. The Microsoft voices are getting pretty good, and at first I couldn't even tell the difference. Especially because the voice actors, man, when they talk, they're doing it part of their that's message just threw me off. Sorry. Part of what they do, of course, if you listen to like the news, for example, a newscaster, that's a professional voice actor, right? A news anchor or whatever, someone reading the news. They almost sound like a robot. They're not, though. It's a human being, and they probably would never actually use a robot, but it's a human being trying to sound like a robot. That's kind of how it sounds. These voice actors, I asked them to make it sound natural, but they are isolated sentences. So it's natural, but it's not too natural, I guess. So that's why probably in hindsight, why the voice actor sounded very similar to the text to speech, but it's not the same. When I calm down, compare the two, it's not the same. The human is better. I do not want to shadow a text to speech. I did find the text to speech good to listen to, but I don't really want to shadow it. Whereas the human voice recording, shadowing it, I think is very good. Yeah, and it's not necessarily $2,000 good, but it's good. So, that's my deck. I also have my Anki deck. So I've got those two sentence decks, the Japanese and the Korean. I have a Korean grammar deck, which I call the cheat deck. I uploaded it to the Anki shared deck list. I don't know if anyone has downloaded this deck. I like it. I've actually downloaded other decks, and I keep coming back to this one. The material is not something I made myself, but I did actually take this material, this cheat list that was a PDF file, and make it into an SRS deck. And I love it. And I have it set up. One thing that you may have heard if you listen to Matt vs. Japan talk about, and maybe other people too, talk about learning grammar is as much as you can. They don't say as much. They say make it just like studying vocabulary. Well, as much as you can, right? Because it's not vocabulary, but as much as possible, make it like studying vocabulary. And to me, that sentence decks, which I kind of used in the past, are, although helpful, anything's helpful. Anytime you try to fight with grammar, anything you do with grammar is probably going to help you a little bit. They're frustrating, but I have it set up now so it has just the grammar point. So if it's like a word ending or like a particle, it just has that in side one. Then side two has the example sentence and all that. I find this much easier for review. I will say I'm not consistently reviewing it as much as my vocabulary cards, but as long as I do it, I'm going to be generous here and say as long as I do it at least once a month, then it's helpful. Because, yeah, that's better than nothing. Anyway, I was doing it actually. I was staying on top of it for a while, doing it every day. But the past week or two, I haven't touched it. So we'll maybe touch it tonight, but maybe. Even if I do it just a little bit, I'm always a little proud of myself. Because studying grammar sucks. So, what else? Oh, italki. And I've gone back. I was using a Korean tutor on italki to help me stay focused on learning grammar because, by God, I find grammar hard. Gosh, I didn't talk about. I've actually done this video a couple times for different reasons. Anyway, LingQ. So first, I want to go into LingQ. I changed the way I do LingQ. And when previous, I did it the normal way. Basically, you find a new word you don't know, you click it, you mark it known, unknown, whatever. It gets colored, and you basically click on every colored word as it comes up as you read. I stopped doing that. I am marking every word known, all of them, and this makes it so much more fun to read. I think instead of before, I was getting like a psychological hit whenever I would encounter a yellow word. I'm like, yeah, I still don't know that. Instead, I'm marking it known. It's good, right? It's actually, and it's less distracting. The big thing is that right now I'm marking all of them known, so I am still clicking a lot of words, but on some pages not so much. And I noticed that the big thing is when I can actually read a text, a page with no colors on it, I can scan it. I was kind of like the natural. I just scan it, and I look to scan it to get the gist of what's going on. And when you want to just get the gist of something, you don't need to look up all the words you don't know, just the keywords. You kind of, as you're scanning it, you're like, this is a keyword. You can kind of tell it's the verb or whatever. It's the keyword that you don't know, but is keeping you from understanding the gist. And so you can just look that up, and then you look up far fewer words reading the text than with LingQ, the way LingQ was making me do it, looking up every word I didn't know. So happy to stop doing that. And now, I don't know, I guess my LingQ count of words will show the amount of words I've actually encountered, which is actually a little bit of an interesting number to keep track of, I guess. So that's kind of cool. I will keep an eye out for a Korean e-reading app that has a built-in dictionary that is fast, hopefully fast, because I still, we'll see. I'm going to experiment. But clearly this is, especially if I don't want those damn colors on the screen, then LingQ is not the ideal software. But Korean is not like, for many other languages, it doesn't have as many resources. It's better than some, like Thai, for example. But there's still every so often I'm always going on the App Store looking to see if there's a a new app for Korean that does what I used to be able to do in Japanese but can't do in Korean. Yeah. And back to italki. Yeah, so I'm not using my Korean tutor. She was mostly using English to teach me Korean, which wasn't terrible. It's not terrible, but it does cost money. And also, because especially with the way I'm using Link now, I feel like I'm actually immersing better, and I don't feel like I need that extra help from a tutor per se to get the grammar to stay focused on Korean. I feel like the Link has become less of a hassle to use, and in general, I'm good. So not using it for Korean, but unfortunately, no, I'm using it for Japanese because, well, for one, I had a wonderful Japanese language Skype partner. We used to speak once a week for a couple of years, and we were really good friends. And unfortunately, we were stopping the language exchange just recently. Which means that if I want to improve my Japanese or not let it get too bad, then I'm going to need to, do something about it. I find that finding a language partner on an app like Tandem or HelloTalk, while very possible, and I'm doing it, is not consistent. It's just not something I can rely on, and occasionally it gets a little weird. Apparently, some of my, especially like the middle-aged women. Are looking for men to flirt with. Although I guess it could be anyone, but mostly for me, it's middle-aged women looking to flirt with me, and it's a little uncomfortable. It's even, I think sometimes even if I don't know, I feel like it's a little uncomfortable. I had a language exchange with actually it's a little weird. I had it with a Korean lady who's a Japanese translator. And in her profile, it says she's learning English. And I'm like, that's so cool. She speaks Japanese. I speak Japanese. She's learning English. I'm learning Korean. We can have this great conversation, and this should be great. And she was very willing. I send messages to lots of people, and I kind of don't. On one hand, I think, especially with women, they want you to kind of get a little comfortable with you maybe before you just jump into a live conversation. But so many people, in part because of the time difference or the language ability, they really don't want to do the live chat, even after they've texted you many times and do feel comfortable with you or whatever, sort of. They won't do it. So I'm very quick in saying, look, I want to do a voice chat or a video chat language exchange. And she was open to it, so that was very cool. And we did it. And we just started speaking Japanese first because that's all it's our her English is not very good. My Korean is not very good. We hit it off in Japanese, and then both of us were way too shy to switch to the languages that we're learning. I mean, I'm still learning Japanese. She's still learning Japanese, I guess, although her Japanese was spot on. Her job was not like to translate Japanese text, but actually she worked at the Line company, the famous Line messaging app. I'm sure they have lots of other stuff. To translate for business conferences between the Japanese branch and the Korean branch. And she apparently does this every day. Anyway, that's a high level job, translating job. And so her Japanese is spot on. Listening to her speak Japanese was almost like the Korean professional voice actor that I paid so much money for was speaking Japanese to me. Just the way she talked and her pitch. I don't know. Maybe it's a Korean thing. I don't know. Anyway, she had a very nice speaking voice, and her Japanese was beautiful. But anyway, it didn't work out. In the end, somehow it just didn't feel, I don't know. It wasn't like it didn't feel like, it just felt like we were just making friends using Japanese, and it just didn't seem like I don't know. I hope she still talks to me. The connection kind of got bad all of a sudden, and then we stopped, and then she hasn't really replied since, so we'll see. I would like to be friends with her and just kind of talk about Japan and stuff, but maybe not the best language partner. Although maybe if I get better at Korean, and I make myself Because if we make it a language, like a proper language exchange, then it could work. But yeah, anyway, so using Tandem, it kind of feels like a dating app. It's a little weird, yo. With italki, not the case. These are tutors. You're paying the money. It's I want to make friends with them, sort of, but at the same time, it's a business relationship. There's not like, there's no flirting going on, at least that I've ever experienced, with italki. Yeah, so it's going well with the Japanese. I'm actually recording my conversations. My goal was kind of to improve my pronunciation and my Japanese speaking. Japanese people are so polite. They always want to compliment you, which the tutors especially, they want to compliment you. I think the tutors especially. And they're like, well, compared to native, it's not always like native. I'm like, I recorded myself. I listened to myself. Not native. I mean, I guess if I said maybe some one word sentences very carefully, just one word, maybe if I get lucky in a area with bad acoustics, maybe. But otherwise, you can hear my American accent. It's just it's not with Japanese. They have this pitch accent thing, which I'm just starting to get into, and I'm interested. I think it could have a small impact on my Japanese. And if it's ever hard to understand me say something, I could really, be like, oh, what's the pitch accent? Make sure I get that right. So it's a good thing, but it's my vowels, my consonants, just so many things about the way I speak Japanese. It's just my English, my native English influences it. It doesn't, as I listen to myself, I got used to it. So my Japanese, and it sounds, in a lot of ways, I sound very fluent. Although not always. Sometimes I stop to think because I can't think of a word maybe, or sometimes I just stop to think of what to say. And because I have the accent, because I have you think, if you're listening, you might think, oh, he's stopping because he can't, his language, his Japanese isn't quite there yet. Not always the case. Sometimes I'm just thinking like, I'm just thinking back to 6 years ago, trying to think, what the heck? So what did I do in Japan when I first got there? Or like, what food did I eat? Or who did I meet? What like fun experience did I have? Culture shock did I have, or something? I'm just thinking, and you kind of might think, and if at least on the video recording when I was watching myself, I'm like, oh, it seems like maybe can't think of what to say there, and it's like, but it's not my Japanese. And then later, sometimes you can hear me going really fast. That my pace really changes. Yeah. It would be so nice if I could improve my Japanese pronunciation. I'm very skeptical on really achieving that though, just because of my age and my ability. I'm not a musician. I've never been musically inclined. I've never been good at accents per se. So probably not going to happen, but I'm going to give it a shot a little bit. What I'm thinking of doing is finding a good YouTube video on Japanese pronunciation and just turning on, like I'm recording this right now, just turn on my microphone and record myself listening and repeating to some audio designed to help me with Japanese pronunciation. Then go back and listen to that, to listen to me trying to imitate those Japanese sounds. And maybe if I do that enough times, I might get better. I may not though. And I don't want to like beat a dead horse, so to speak. I don't want to force something that's not really going to happen. So I'll give it a try. And if I see some improvement, then we'll see. But if it seems like it's not going anywhere, then I'll stop. And I do think that as I watch the video, there's a lot of, never mind my pronunciation, just in terms of getting better at Japanese. Although I think I sound really good. I can say a lot really fast, very spontaneously. I'm in a lot of ways, I'm impressed watching it. There's room for improvement there for sure. And so that's where I could sound better just by having, more ready vocabulary. Like I try to think of the word military in Japanese. And if I heard, I would have got it. But for some reason, it just wasn't popping into my head. That happened to me when I was speaking to that lady from Korea too. And I couldn't think of how to say violence. She's kind of like, suddenly she's like, what's wrong with you? Will you just stop talking? Because I've been speaking so naturally up until like Yeah. Anyway, that is my update, and I will hopefully do another update sooner than 3 months. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.